Welcome, gentlemen. Steve Maeda here, and this is Divorce and Custody, and we are going through a workshop. This is part 2 of our workshop on the legal game, as well as stuff that is on this path of being a great man. Now, if we remember in yesterday's presentation, there were 2 paths that a man is on in this, and they start in the same place, the same exact place of anger, depression, resentment, blame, some combination of 1 or 2 or all of those different things that end up very toxic, but they end up in 2 different places. And that first spot that they end up in that we're trying to promote for you guys and have as a guide for you, and really the intention and purpose for this is that you become the man in his personal excellence, in his greatness. And if you are a man in your personal excellence, you are going to follow a certain path. And whether you stay separated in a divorce and in a custody battle, or you get back together, that path is the same. For you to learn to be responsible for your lives, to be a general and not a soldier, which we're going to get into today, and it's in just a ton of my products. For you to be a leader for your family and lead yourself and them into a great spot in their life, you're going to live a certain way. And then there's the other side, which stays in the blame and the resentment and the anger and that sort of vindictive mindset, and never evolves past it. And don't get me wrong, there's a reason why you might be feeling those things. It's totally justified, but we need to act on them in a certain way, which is to be really careful, be really, really careful about how this all goes. Man, it's so important. We do not want to be a man that 10 years down the road has carried this weight of pain or the rest of his life. And we see that happen all the time. This is black and white. Don't get me wrong. There are problems with things like men's rights. There's problems with our society and men. There is a blinder put on everybody. But if you are in a divorce or a separation or a custody battle or any of those things, and you do not deal with it head on, you are going to 100% waste your time on these very important issues and turn them into gossip. So what we want to do is we want to better our lives, get to a point of personal excellence, get to a point where we are our best selves, and then we can start looking at those different attributes of societal problems. Now, also in this, so this is a series. There's 5 parts to it. If you want to download the slides, we're going to have those available to you on the YouTube broadcast of this. This is being streamed live on the Austin Men's Development Board, and then afterwards we answer questions. If you did want to get involved in this whole thing, man, something like the resources down below, really start with the free PDF, which is the Single Dad's Guide to Divorce and Custody, and that is really going to help give you a good overview of this. Divorce and Custody, the Survival Guide for Men, a 4-part, thorough, rock solid product that I made, 4-part video series, PDFs. I mean, everything is thought through. Everything that we cover in this about attorneys today is done much better in Divorce and Custody, the Survival Guide for Men. It's $200, but if you sign up for Men's Development Excellence, which is our community, you can get into all of our calls. You can get just tons of other products like the work, stuff on goal setting, stuff on purpose and ambition, stuff on being social, stuff on fixing your relationships and the patterns in your life that may have led you to this. It's just insane, the amount of stuff you get with Men's Development Excellence. But the most important part of that is the community, 30 hours of calls a week. I'm on probably 15 of those. Man, just amazing. You don't need to be on all the calls. You can plug and play and all that, and 24-hour support with our online groups. It's insane. To be honest, it's exactly what a guy going through a stressful situation like a divorce needs. So what we're going to cover today is a lot of stuff, and man, this is a lot. I'm going to try and keep this within the hour, but I'm only so human, and there's so much to each and every single one of these topics. So we want to talk about the path of fatherhood, the path that you're on. Briefly mentioned that just now. We're going to talk about, do you need a lawyer? How do you determine that? Okay, how do you find a good lawyer? What happens if you can't afford a lawyer? What will guarantee or ensure that your lawyer screws you? How does the court see parenting? Why is it important to make a plan? My case and why I won it, the 2 tools or exercises you can do that is the place to start before you start interviewing lawyers, or, before you go in for your initial consultation with a lawyer, and then the review of building the great man. So let's go to this first slide, and this is our path of fatherhood. And remember, the end goal is to be a great man, a man in his personal excellence. And whether you or your partner get divorced, you stay together, whether she inspired it or you inspired it, the path is to be a great man. And this is very difficult. So many times when we get caught up in this, and there's different angles to it. If we inspired the divorce, we're like, I'm going to do what I want, and finally it's my independence. Yes, I want you to feel that. I want you to feel your independence. And even if she inspired it, I want you to feel your independence. But that does not negate you from the responsibility that you have of living your best life, and especially for your kids. That's huge. I hear so many men who, whether it was female inspired or it was inspired by yourself, to say that, this is all about me being great. But really, when we take a step back, it's just an emblem of selfishness, whether that's pity or blame and not responsibility of self. This is the point of what we're doing here at Austin Men's Development. If you're on this board and you're going through a divorce and you're into that topic and you are not steadfast looking at how you can be great, you are failing at this board and you do not belong here. I don't care if that whittles us down to 2 people and me and one other person talking. That is way more valuable than thousands of people just sitting around and doing nothing. What it means to be a great man, there's a lot to it, and it's a long road, and it's too much to discuss in one presentation, let alone one slide. But there's so much that goes into that: your mind, your body, your ways of being social, your expressions of your sex, and that includes your masculinity, as well as your purpose and ambition, need to be in check and worked daily. We're going to fail. I don't succeed at these things daily, but they are on my scope every day, and I work at them. And I'm obsessed with them, man. I have groups that work them with me, and over 100 guys at any given time that are constantly doing these things. This is a great thing. So we want to take the actions that shape our lives best for our children. Very important. If you have kids, that's massively important, right? That is huge. And sometimes that might mean taking time off. But it's not as simple as that, I'm neglecting them. It's like, man, I'm doing this for myself. Or maybe you're far away from your kids, or maybe you only see them at certain times. That's something that I'll probably not talk about in this presentation, but there can be benefits that if you are unable to see your kids. So don't take this lightly. This is really about high level personal excellence. Remember, there's 2 paths. They start in the same place. You want to end up on the good one, and that's what we do. So this next thing is the soldier and the general. Okay. So the soldier and the general is a concept that I talk about a lot, especially in coaching men going through a divorce, because there's so much about a divorce that has guilt, whether we inspired it or she inspired it, right? Man, we are like, I didn't do enough. I failed my family. This is the one thing that I was supposed to do. It hurts so bad. Oh man, like all of this pity that comes out, all of this guilt. And again, this is important. A man is going to feel that. You need your brothers next to you to take you through this time, because you're like, man, I screwed up again. Why did this happen? Why does it keep happening? That is fine and very common for people to think. Excuse me. But this is something that you have to be able to navigate in the right way. And this is where you need men next to you during that, who've been there and done that, who are not going to co-sign your BS. This is one of the problems with friends and family. Friends and family are great. You need them. But a lot of times they can co-sign these moments that are not moving into the higher level thoughts of what your potential is. They're there to support you, but they don't always push you in that right direction. That being said, let's describe this. So a soldier will sacrifice himself. A soldier will go in on the front line. A soldier will basically, do what's necessary to, progress forward, right? So to progress the rest of the soldiers, to progress the line forward. And that's important. And that is one of the greatest masculine traits that we can have. And a lot of times our guilt and our pity hijacks that. But we're not a soldier in this. We're a general. A general has a totally different role in this. And that general's role is to be able to see the plan of peace ahead. You're at war, but to see the plan of peace, to take things in a direction in the craziness of war, in the confusion of war, in the inability to see the future and the what's going to happen, and getting attacked and flanked at all sorts of different positions. The general is there to lead. He cannot sacrifice himself. He cannot let his lower mind come up. He cannot let his pity and his blame take things over. He has to be able to get centered every day and see on the map where he needs to go. And that is the map of literally where he needs to navigate the course, but also figuratively in how this whole thing is going to unfold. And the more information you have and the more guidance you have around experienced people in that is the way to do it. Because a lot of times, we go through one divorce in our life, maybe we go through two, but it's really something that we need to keep in mind. We are the general in this and we are not the soldier. All right, let's get into this one. Lawyers, those scumbags. So we hear a lot. We hear a lot about lawyers, that highly opinionated. I want to cover a little bit here, but I want to talk about if we do need a lawyer, we have to get a lawyer. Okay. Now, number one, I'm not a lawyer. I help guide men through this all day long, but that does not mean I replace a lawyer. That does not mean I replace your therapist or whatever mental health professionals that you may need. I am somebody that will help guide you through this process to become a better man for your family, to be able to oversee everything for you. If you need a lawyer, you need a lawyer. Okay, so a couple things that are really important in this is whether or not you need a lawyer or the degree of your case or any of those things. I always think it's a good idea to, number one, be able to consult an attorney. So that could be a free consultation or a paid consultation, or have somebody on the side that you can talk to. And in order to find that person, you might need to interview multiple people. Okay, so you might need to do multiple consultations for that. Now, that being said, a couple things that are arguments that I hear all the time in this from guys who are within this is, you don't need a lawyer. I did this myself. Okay, you don't know the particulars of that person's case. They don't know your case. Right? And divorce and family law, the consequences are great. The consequences could be that you do not see your kids anymore. The consequences could be that you pay anywhere from, $1 million in extra child support or alimony that are unnecessary if you handle it wrong. The consequences could be that it's just $40,000 extra, but that is a massive amount, right? These are things where you can screw yourself. You can end up incriminating yourself. We talked about that. We'll talk about that a little bit more here. You could end up not seeing your kids. You could end up with protective orders. You could end up with CPS getting involved and all these different things, which is just crazy in this. And in fact, in this slide presentation, when we get to it, I will remember to add in some of those consequences of CPS that could happen, because it's different how CPS is handled than a lot of the criminal stuff. And you should really be aware of it. Again, could be different from state to state, county to county. But man, this is very true in Austin, or in Travis County, where I live. Very, very, some big differences that you should be aware of. So you need to think about this argument that men give all the time, which is like, you don't need a lawyer. Lawyers suck. The divorce industry is an industry. It's a business that just eats men alive. It ruins lives. It ruins families. It ruins men. These things could all be super true. So it could be totally true. I agree with a lot of them. Like, lawyers, man, they suck. They're so expensive. They just take your money. They can be lazy. They can drop the ball. They see it as a business. They don't fully represent, all these different things. But man, if you need a lawyer, you need a lawyer. So the answer then is not whether or not lawyers suck. It's that lawyers suck. What do I need to do to hire a good lawyer? What do I need to do to determine if I need a lawyer or not? How do I fire a lawyer if they're not doing a good job? How do I vet certain lawyers? These are the questions you need to be asking yourself, instead of just being lazy and following on, once again, all those men's rights groups, all those different, the red pill and the opinions on what's wrong with masculinity in our society. There's so much blame. You don't have time for that right now. And you can come back to it. You can totally come back to it. I want somebody to actually change society. Sadly, I see too many people bitching about it and making money off of it and not learning how to teach men like, okay, how do I save my freaking family right now? And that's what I want you to do. So let's go to this. Do you need a lawyer? All right. Do you need a lawyer? Interesting question. Man, in most cases, I'm just going to say yes. You need a lawyer. I don't know. I don't know your case. I don't know your situation. But here's a couple things that I want you to look at, and I'll kind of explain why. Are both of you in therapy? Is she or you in therapy? If you guys are not working on yourselves, this is a highly stressful situation. A lot of stressful stuff comes out. And again, I'm going to tell you something here. Like, people do screwed up things in these situations. If we see them as, oh, my ex did some psycho borderline stuff during a divorce, that's better than just going, my ex is a psycho borderline person. This is an extremely stressful situation where people are going to do crazy things. Now, they still have to be responsible for those crazy things. That's really important that they are. But if we don't have any sort of therapeutic outlet or somebody like a support group, or if they're not working on themselves, man, I can almost guarantee people are going to do some stupid stuff during this. Some stuff which is like borderline behavior or psycho behavior or narcissistic behavior, Machiavellian behavior. So are you both in therapy? Okay. Have you had lawsuits before? Hold on, let me change this really quick. So have you been in lawsuits before? And that's for both of you. Were they family law cases? Now, I'm going to tell you now, like most of my experience with lawsuits, well, I don't know. There could be business and there could be stuff in family law, but they both are kind of the same. They follow similar principles, and it's very helpful for me in terms of navigating certain lawsuits, which are always stressful. I'm not inviting them. I don't want any more of them in my life ever. They suck. But if you've been in a lawsuit before, you kind of know how, evidence may not matter. It might matter. It might not matter. You kind of know that a judge, it depends on your judge big time. So there's all sorts of different things. In family law, you're going to know even more particulars of that. So that's there. Is your separation amicable? Like, are you guys friends? And it's very common, you're friends now, but you might not be. Or you made an oath to never take each other to court and kill each other, but then all of a sudden you're doing it. So things could change. You just want to have that on. So again, let's say if it's amicable and you're hearing me say, be careful. That doesn't mean that you need to be paranoid. It just means that you need to have a lawyer on standby. You need to have already established communication with an attorney. That's easy. That's not a problem. You can definitely do that. That's not an expensive thing. Okay. So, what is your dirty laundry? What is her dirty laundry? Okay. That's important. Okay. So what are the things that are not good about your life? What are the things that are good about your life? And what you can realize if you ever do a dirty laundry list, which I highly recommend for people, which is like all of your dirt, all of your bad stuff. The more bad stuff you are used to doing in your life, the more you're going to be like, dude, oh my God, I'm screwed. If I ever get in trouble, I'm screwed. Okay. So are you familiar with how alimony, property, and child support and custody is determined in your state and in your county? So you need to be familiar with that. That's very important. That's going to help determine if you need a lawyer. Whether you get a lawyer or not, you should do all of these things. Okay, that's important. You should be able to answer these questions and be able to make your determination from that. It's very, very important. Have there been claims of abuse, drug use, or violence? Have there been any actions of your partner attacking your reputation or life? Have you been attacking your partner's reputation? Do you ever get intoxicated in front of family members or friends? Do you ever get intoxicated when kids are around? Same goes for violence. Have you ever been violent or shown anger with your partner, with your kids, in front of your kids, in front of family members? So this is really important that you're able to go over these different things. And the list could go on in so many different ways, but you need to be able to look at these things. These are important in a family custody situation, especially if in determining whether or not you need a lawyer. Okay. That is very, very important. Very important. So you need to do your due diligence. Like if you just go like, I don't need a lawyer because I'm going to wing it, and I assume that, you are wrong. I want you to answer those questions. I want you to get a good look of the reality of what this might be. And then you can start to determine whether or not you need a lawyer. Now, if you're a part of this group, use the group. If you're on Austin Men's Development Board, you should ask like, hey man, can I talk to somebody to see whether or not I need a lawyer? I've done my due diligence. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the due diligence that you need to do in order to be able to really make that decision. But that's huge. It's huge, huge. Okay, so how do you find a good lawyer? This is actually more simple and not what you think would be the answer than you could imagine. And man, I am so happy that I have the resources that I have in my life, and things were set up intentionally the way that I had set them up. So a lot of people think find a good lawyer, you go on Yelp or you read some reviews or you ask a friend. These are not the best ways. So personal references are good, but there's a caveat to that, which a lot of people get screwed on all the time. The best way to find a good lawyer is from another attorney's reference. Now that could be from a business attorney, that could be from a criminal defense attorney or whatever, but this is how you're going to find the best lawyers. If that attorney friend of yours, which you should start having right now. I mean, if you have a week to pick a lawyer, which sometimes you don't, sometimes you need one tomorrow. I would spend the next week, talking with your friends, your family, and if you know lawyers and these types of things. Because of this group, I know lawyers. Before that, I didn't. And man, I got screwed for a lot of it. I could tell you the different, God, man, I've gotten screwed big time by lawyers. So, and again, I don't want to risk that or challenge that. I don't want to have to get another lawyer for another case and have to hire a good one and take a chance. And oh, geez, man. If it's family law or business, I know the people in Austin, at least currently. So one of the things is that lawyer reference needs to be from a lawyer who's active in the community, currently active. It doesn't mean that they've been a lawyer. It doesn't mean that they're kind of a lawyer. It doesn't mean that they're a lawyer, but they just sit behind a desk. That means that they're a lawyer. They go to trial. They interact with other lawyers. They see how the courtrooms work. And that could be, again, in a totally different realm than in family law. Okay. You should only be looking, if you need a family law attorney, you should only be looking for family law attorneys. Okay, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I can get a reference from a criminal defense attorney. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So in my situation, a business attorney recommended a couple family law attorneys to me years ago. Actually, two of them did. And I started interviewing them for my podcast and so on. And that's actually how I chose my lawyers, was because I have these references from business attorneys, two business attorneys who, man, set me up with God, dude. In fact, one of the advice for the business attorney that he said, he's like, man, you want to interview this guy. You want to interview this dude because he is going to really, really show you if you have a case that can be won, he'll win it. And he actually followed that. He's like, I think you know what I mean. Because some cases, I mean, you can't, if you don't have a case that can be won, then it can't be won. I mean, there's a lot to that. Okay, so do not hire an attorney based on their ethnicity or culture. This is super common. And this sounds like this racist thing. And technically it is. Like when people are hiring an attorney, particularly just for their culture or their race, that's not only a dumb move for their family, but that's a dumb move in terms of racism and our culture and so on. That's terrible. There can be great attorneys that align with your cultural beliefs and so on. But man, Make sure somebody is a great attorney first before they side with whatever religious or cultural or ethnic beliefs that you may have. That is so common, and it is so terrible. So terrible. People destroy their families because, let's say they're like, oh, my mom was a Chinese immigrant. I only want to have a Chinese immigrant. Like, we grew up speaking Chinese or whatever. Get the best attorney first, not somebody who aligns with a certain culture. That happens all the time. All the time. It is disturbing, and attorneys market to that. Another thing is do not hire anybody that's not a family law attorney. You're a fool. Court cases follow the same principles. This was interesting. I was consulting. So during my last case, there was a custody case that we were going through. Divorce, family law, custody, all that sort of stuff. One of the people that helped coach me through the depositions was a personal injury attorney, but I had a family law attorney. That personal injury attorney, when they found out that the other party had hired a criminal defense attorney, they were just like, oh, geez, they're going to blow it. They're going to blow it. That attorney is unprepared to deal with the questions that you're going to field. Now, the criminal defense or the personal injury attorney that I was talking to, they were coaching me on a certain type of aspect in that deposition and so on. So very, very different in how these things interact. Okay, so interview at least 3 attorneys. If you don't interview multiple attorneys, you are really... So this happens all the time. We interview one attorney, we go, man, they're great. We get emotionally sold on the attorney. That's another tool of manipulation that we're going to talk about here that attorneys use. That is like the red flag. Interview at least 3 attorneys. Do not hire a men's rights attorney. Do not hire the shark. Do not hire the man that stands for men or the woman that stands for men. Now, there are some good TED Talks, of people who are men's rights attorneys, but like maybe they're good attorneys. I don't know. Maybe they're great. But man, like the big firms that represent men, the individuals that represent men, have the worst horror stories, and then they just blame the court system on how it's screwed. And what oftentimes those attorneys do is they bait and switch you. This is something that you need to realize, and why it's important to not get references from attorneys that are over 2 years old, right? Because if an attorney is no longer active, like there's an attorney in Austin, and they have some of the best references ever. They've represented the greatest people in divorce and all that stuff. But for the last 10 years, this person does the same thing. And it's so sad because one of my clients had hired them, and it was before they joined our group and didn't have the resources to point it out, and came to our group afterwards once they were screwed. But the attorney bait and switched them and did what every attorney that was active in the courts told me this attorney does, is that they get you all worked up, they get you all fired up, they do a good job, and up at the end they go, oh, we blew something, or you blew something, and they put it on you and kind of gaslight you, and then they say, man, we have to settle. So they went through this whole thing, took millions of dollars from the client or hundreds of thousands of dollars from the client. And then at the very end, just go, oh man, we don't have a case. Sorry. And that is huge. So that attorney was great 10 years ago and won some of the best cases and has been lazy for the last 10 years. So you want to be really cautious of that. I mean, gosh, this has to do with your money and your family. And just think about that. If you get a loss from your family, and then it's followed by money, and then it's followed by a permanent decision on how your custody, your child support, and your alimony is determined, that's a big blow that you can't avoid. And the point of this is to help you avoid that. So what I want to go over now is, what if you can't afford an attorney? Now, this is another cop-out for men, and bear with me here. It's a cop-out in the sense that it means, oh, I can stop thinking about this. If you can't afford an attorney, fine. Okay, let's come up with a plan of what you can do to be able to navigate yourself through this. And if you get divorced in custody, the Survive God for Men, we break down actual scenarios of like, all right, if these things are happening and you go in front of a judge, here's some of the worst that could happen. Here's the okay stuff, the moderate stuff that can happen. And here's the best case scenario. So it's really good in how this is laid out of when we talk about not being able to afford an attorney, or we have to, man, this happens too, it's terrible, is you get an attorney, they bait and switch you, or they're lazy towards the end, and then you have to fire your attorney halfway through, and you're out of money and you can't get another one. those things happen. Like, what are the scenarios you go through? So that being said, let's check it out here. Let's get this straight. I say nobody can afford attorney. And also, let's get this straight. Whether or not you're able to get an attorney or not, there's still some things that you need to go through for your attorney. If you think that you can just give money to an attorney and you're good, you're taking one of the dumbest approaches to this divorce, which so many men do, and they do it for many reasons. One of those reasons is like they don't want to look at all the dark stuff that comes up in divorce. Now, in the upcoming presentations, we're going to go over a lot of the psychological stuff and a lot of the mental illness that comes into play in divorce and the mental health that comes into divorce on both sides, your partner and you. And you might be like, me, not me, like she's the crazy one. We're going to look at both. One of the psychological traps that happens in this whole process is that you are going to not want to look at certain things. And a lot of times we go, hey, attorney, handle this. Here you go. I don't want to re-look through the text messages. I do not want to think about what could be subpoenaed on both ends. I don't want to do blah, 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 blah. So you have to be able to do that. One, to save yourself money, but also to help your attorney navigate a strategy. That attorney's job is to help navigate the law and communicate with the law, communicate with the judges, and do it in a right way. Do it in the ways that we would screw up if we were doing it alone. But your job is to help. You're in this, is to do all of the stuff. You're going to regret it if you don't. And I've done that so many times. My first court case, I didn't know what was going on. I hired an attorney that was referenced by a friend who owned a business. It sounded great. She blew it, man. She pissed off the judge so bad that my case could have gotten thrown out of court. And in fact, similar cases to mine were thrown out of court that were exactly the same as mine, and mine could have been. It could have saved me a ton of money. But instead, she pissed off the judge. The judge then went like full bore on me. I had to do an ex parte thing, which means like an emergency deal. I had to get another attorney. That attorney saved my ass, but I still had to pay to get all those repairs to happen. And the moral of the story is, and how I know that the same thing got done, is that attorney was then hired by other people who were being sued by the same person. And she kicked the living shit out of him, got the cases thrown out, and pretty much put the company out of business because of it all. It did a lot of great damage. That attorney, great, man. She did an excellent job. And that was like 12, 13 years ago or so. That was my first introduction to it. And so I was lazy in a lot of it and didn't know how to involve myself in it. A lot of the reasons why I didn't involve myself was because I didn't know how. I had nobody showing me the first step. I didn't want to see any of the dark stuff or like where this affected me or what it challenged me. I just wanted to avoid it and stay in denial. Remember, we all start in blame and denial, and depression and denial. We have to learn to move through that. So a couple things. We want to start by knowing what determines alimony, property, custody in your state and in your county. You should be going to City Hall. In City Hall, they will have references on divorce and family law. There's legal aid services, which you can look up online. So you just Google legal aid services. You should be familiar with all of this, whether you hire an attorney or not. Okay. You should go to a divorced. Now this is tough. This is technically what we are, but I just want to put some warnings out there. Find divorce groups and forums for men. This is massive on the cultural hate, but there are some good ones. There's a guy in my group who is in England, and he has a support group that he goes to for men, and they will take him through. And it's great because it has to do with their local laws. So they'll take him through the paperwork, how to petition it, how to do all the stuff that your attorney would do and charge you whatever it is, $200 to $500 an hour for. And they show you how to do that stuff. That stuff you can do. So you want a good support group for men. There's a lot that are not good, and it's difficult with Austin Men's Development, because in Austin, we could show you how to do that. But even in, let's say, Tarrant County or Dallas County, which is just up the road, would be different, in what we're going through. There might be things that are similar, but they're particular to your region. And some things aren't, right? Some things that are kind of universal throughout the US or around the world that will help in these situations. So those groups can be great, but man, there's such a needle in the haystack. But man, when you can find a good one, they help you out so much. These are things that you could do. So if you can't afford an attorney and you're just like, what do I do? This is where you start, right? This is where you start. And again, in Divorce and Custody, the Survival Guide for Men, this is laid out better. And if you're a part of MDX, which includes that, you can talk to hundreds of guys who've been there and done that 24/7 who will help you through that. It's really an amazing community for you. So you want to, again, know your laws. You want to consult legal aid. You should also interview attorneys during this time, the ones that are for free. And if you can afford a couple $100, do the ones where you pay for consultations. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You find your divorced men's groups. That's key. So then I want you to also inventory. And this, again, don't run from this. So many times, I can't afford an attorney is a cop-out. So it's just you do nothing and you can be depressed. You go, man, I'm just going to walk out with a shirt on my back. All that sort of bullshit, guilt, pity talk that men are somehow allowed to do in this culture. It's terrible. Go through the process of what would it mean to file for a divorce by myself? What would that mean? What would it mean to go through mediation in a divorce and custody battle? What does that mean? What could I do unrepresented? How do I do that? Like, look at it. And this is really the line. You don't need to gossip on the red pill stuff. You need to look at, what do I do to go through mediation? Then what do I do if I get deposed? That means you're sworn under oath, and usually their attorney interviews you and it's videotaped or what do I do for that? How do I get coached on it? Remember I said I got coaching on it and from multiple people. Like, what do I do to understand what that means? What do I do to go through a hearing, right? And these are all things like you can actually get coached on by an attorney, and it will be cheaper than an attorney doing it for you. That being said, you're much better off. You need to both be doing it. And another thing I will say is, even if you do hire an attorney, this is very important because you need to check your attorney's work. That dude is a good one is going to be working all the time and stressed out. So that's a bad thing to the good thing. But a good attorney is really, really going to be working a lot, and you need to check their stuff. What does it mean to go through a trial by yourself? And I would not recommend that. That is bad stuff. Bad stuff all around. So how do we ensure that our lawyer will screw us or take advantage of us? And this is going to be an interesting slide here because I'm going to take you through what your part in all of this is. So a lawyer that screws you is a lawyer that screws you, right? A lawyer that takes advantage of you is somebody that maliciously takes advantage of you. Like I said, there's that one attorney in Austin who was really popular at one time and still gets clients and bait and switches them all the time. So probably one of the biggest ways a lawyer is going to screw you is by baiting and switching you, overcommitting. Those lawyers are going to oversell you emotionally. They're going to get all up into men's rights and all this sort of stuff and get you all fired up. And you go, yeah. And they're going to call your ex a bitch or whatever, and say that she's crazy. And these things may or may not be relevant. Like you're like, yes, she's crazy. She's totally crazy. She might really be crazy. That might not matter though in divorce and alimony and property division. It may not matter in custody. So you got to take those things into consideration, and you need somebody to navigate those for you. So let's start here. Number one is you chose the wrong lawyer. So how do we prevent choosing the wrong lawyer? Like, well, no shit, I got screwed. I chose the wrong lawyer. Did you check the references? Did you interview multiple lawyers? Do you understand the legal process for your area? Did you do those things? Also, I would add in there, did you cross-reference that attorney? Like, they can't tell you who they represented, but do you know people that they've represented? Personal references are all right, remember, as long as they're current, as long as they're within 2 years. But then also, do you know other attorneys? Did you take the time to reach out to other attorneys that you might know for a reference of a good family law attorney? Did you do your diligence in that? Okay. Your lawyer doesn't have trial experience or much of it. If you hire a lawyer that does not have trial experience or much of it, then just consider your case is not ever going to go to trial. I get it. Every attorney needs their first one, but don't let it be you. Get somebody with experience, because if that attorney is afraid to go to trial or wants to avoid trial, and every attorney should avoid trial to some degree, but if your attorney is afraid to do it, then that means they're crippled. That means that when, let's say, your ex doesn't budge on something and her attorney's going at you hard, your attorney can't go, okay, let's go to trial. They're clearly bluffing. But if they are somebody who's gone to trial, your ex's attorney or your partner's attorney is going to go, man, this guy goes to trial a lot. Like, it won't be good. This guy has the trial stuff set up. Like, let's chill with that. Nobody wants to go to trial, but if somebody isn't able to do it, man, you're just basically, you're in a weak spot in that. And they just don't have the experience to understand what that could mean. Okay. You don't work the case with them. That's another thing. So if you don't work your own case with them, meaning helping read stuff, helping find evidence, helping go through evidence, helping look at the strategy, look at what's going on, and without being emotionally charged, like, oh my God, she called me and she sent a picture of her new boyfriend. No, it's not that. That's not it. That's massive, right? Like, you do not want to get involved in any of those things. But if you're not helping them, man, what are you doing? You're setting yourself up for failure. There's another thing. If you get emotionally involved and you have your attorney fight your emotional battles, like, man, you're going to pay in the pocketbook, you're going to waste time, and you're not going to let your attorney do their job. All right. So if you get emotionally involved and you have your attorney fight your emotional battles, you're screwed. Like, again, your attorney is there to be able to navigate the law, right? Your attorney is there to be able to communicate with a judge, to see what is right and wrong. Like, for instance, she could send you messages of saying, fuck you, I want you to die. But you are in a property, like your whole divorce is done, but your property has not yet been established. And you get all tied up in that. Your attorney may have to step backwards and go, okay, well, now we're dealing with what, like harassment or some sort of slander or some sort of threats. Like, do we want to file for this, or do we want to see who's going to get the house and how much? We really, really waste a lot of time when we bring our emotions into it. Now, we start there. We start with being emotionally invested in this and just totally screwed up. So it's understandable, but you got to and this is why a men's group is important, because you don't want your attorney to take $500 of work, let alone way more than that, to explain to you that this is not his job. Okay. So learn to navigate the differences between those. You got a father's rights attorney. That's a great way to get screwed. And this doesn't mean that father's rights isn't good. It means that there's so many guys selling you on that, and they are the biggest rip-off artists. That's one of the biggest consistencies in getting ripped off by the system. You hire a father's rights attorney. There could be good ones, but man, the worst stories always have those revolved around it. Okay. You lied to your attorney. Man, Jesus. You didn't tell your attorney the full story. You tried to, and this is when we get into the psychological, the mental illness, the mental health. In high stress situations, we're already in denial, and meaning that we don't see that it's a lie. Meaning like, oh, we could still get back together. Oh man, I only got drunk once, or like I got drunk a few times. Like, that could be true. I didn't have an affair. She had an affair, whatever. Like, so there's tons of denial that comes into play. And you got to understand, in high stress, psychologically, that's common. That is normal, right? It's not right. In the norm, in a non-divorce situation, that is really bad. But in high stress, it happens a lot. So we need to be aware of that. If that trickles into your attorney and you lie to him, you are setting that person up to be hijacked in whatever you do, whether that's mediation, whether that's in a hearing, whether that's in depositions, and that is terrible. Whether it's in a trial, that is terrible. Okay, terrible. You got emotionally sold by your attorney. That's the same as a father's rights attorney, but they go like, man, that bitch, I bet you she has Marfan's disease or something like that, and she's highly manipulative. And you're like, yes. Okay, what is Marfan's? Okay. Oh, it's that. Oh man, she has that. Yeah, she makes up things about illnesses. All that stuff Could very well be true. But for that attorney to be able to prove that in a court of law is really, really difficult. And man, you better be prepared to pay, because you're going to need psychological experts that you pay $5,000, $2,500 a day just to show up in court for a testimony for 30 minutes. Like, I mean, there's so much that goes into these different things. Being emotionally sold by an attorney is not good. You hired your attorney in order to not be emotionally sold, because they're going to use your emotions just regardless, because it's an emotional situation, or maybe they're not going to use it, but it's going to happen. Is you need to be able to see a real strategic plan from them, like something that happens, and because they have experience, and because they're constantly going to court, because they're active in trials. That's very, very important. Okay, so you hired an attorney based on culture or race. Super common. I'll give a story where that comes into play. You hired an attorney that does not have a specific need or your specific thing. Like, so you hired a criminal defense attorney for a family law problem. Don't do that. Don't. Okay. You did not stop doing what you were doing to get in trouble. So that means, like, your ex is saying, you have a cocaine problem or whatever, and you have not gotten sober. You have not done things like that. And it might not be a big deal. And that's the problem with addiction. Again, heavily laced in denial. Man, if I'm in a court case and my kids are on the line, my family's on the line, I am going to stop. I'm not going to cheat it. I'm not going to kind of every once in a while, smoke a little pot. I'm not going to kind of do cocaine here and there. Like, all that stuff can get tested. And now they can test for it a lot better than just a UA, right? So if they take your fingernails, if they take your toenails, if they take your body hair, that can go back a year. Okay. It can go back more than a year, especially if they go with certain tests. So they can do that. That's one thing I did for my case. I went and got a year drug test, just to have. And actually I did that to pressure my ex to do it. And she got like a 6-week one or something like that. Or she got like something that would not have been respected in the court, because there's minimum. I think I should rewatch the deposition, but it's so ridiculous, because in the deposition, she's like, "Oh, I got the same one as him." No, we asked you to get the same one as him. You did not. I got body hair, which is different than your head hair, or at least from my understanding. And I opted for toenail, but my toenails weren't long enough. So those are like important things. Stop doing what's getting you in trouble. Okay, you communicated with the other parties emotionally. That could be, or other people witnessing. That could be her family members or friends or her. Do not do that. You were careless on social media. You were posting a bunch of stupid stuff. You were like, "Oh, Snapchat deletes it," or Instagram deletes it. No, all that stuff can be subpoenaed. Like, you're ridiculous. Like, don't do that. One attorney told me, never put anything in writing that you could get in trouble for. So don't send a text message. Now there's other things like, there might be Signal or whatever, but those can be screenshotted, all that stuff. You can get in trouble for that. So don't be stupid on social media. Listening to your family and friends about the law. If your family and friends are not attorneys, one, they're too emotionally attached. Your family and friends are there for support. They're great, but they're yes men in this situation. Do not listen to them, right? Or listen to them don't listen to them about stuff that's relevant to your court case and the particulars of the law. Listen to them for support. That's really important, okay? Gossip or being petty, just don't do it. Gossip with us. Gossip with your friends. Gossip with your family and friends. That's cool. But don't do any of that petty stuff. Don't retaliate. Don't, whatever it is, like spray paint somebody or vandalize them. Don't try and wreck their career. Like, wait on all of that. Okay. And it sucks. It's really hard. And we'll talk about those things in the psychological element of it, because it's a huge part. And in some ways, that's a sacred part of all of the revenge and anger that you feel, but handle it in the right way. Very, very important. Okay. Couple things here, how courts see parenting. So we end up in this situation where we were around our kids every day, or almost every day, or something like that. We got to tuck them in at night. We got to eat dinner with them. And now we're not. Okay, so There's a volatile situation. If both parties just handled it themselves, more often than not, it gets all screwed up. The parents lie to each other about a bunch of stuff. They get all angry. The courts are not perfect. They are deeply flawed. There's a bunch of problems in them, but it is the best we got, and it's better than if we let everybody just handle their divorce and custody stuff on their own, because it proved to be harmful, meaning like parents kept other parents from their kids and so on, and lied to their kids, whatever. So the courts come in like this blunt force, right? And it's wrong. It's not the best way to have a family. The best way to have a family is to stay together, right? It's a change. They come in like this blunt force and they give these enforced rules, and all of a sudden you have the state telling you how to do things, okay? The reason why they do that is because it's an attempt to make the best out of the situation. They screw that up all the time. But this is generally what it is. This is one of the overriding things that happens. There's a primary parent, right? And that's the custodial parent. There's a primary parent that takes care of it all. The court is trying to determine who that is. We often come in with gossip and say like, oh, well, the kids are happier with this person or whatever, right? It is literally determined on who is best already taking care of the kids. If your ex is taking them to school and picking them up and all that sort of stuff, taking them to the doctor, then it's most likely going to be her because that is the primary parent. All right. And if both parties just kept it at that, we'd be good. We'd be going like, look, we're separating. We're going to have a primary parent. And most likely it's not going to go to 50-50, meaning 50-50 of the time spent and all the decisions made and so on. There's going to be a primary parent. So if there's a primary parent, that sucks. The other parent is going to have to see the kids less, okay? So that is tough. Nothing is going to be the same from this point if you separate, okay? So there's that. So the primary parent gets to have the kids most of the time. That primary parent is also going to get child support. Then we move into visitation. Visitation gets divided up into multiple ways. There could be 50-50. So in Travis County, a judge does not award 50-50, but outside of the court, they can come to an agreement and a judge can sign off of it and it can be made official. But a judge will only offer expanded standard or standard visitation, or they might do a protective order and have the kids taken away from one parent and so on, all these different things. But visitation then is what we need to move towards. So if you're going through a divorce and a custody separation and all this sort of stuff, you're going to have to determine who's the primary and who's the other parent, right? So it's slipping my mind for some reason what this is called. Anyway, so the secondary parent. So that is going to have to be determined. That sucks. It's not going to be the same. This has to be accepted. That hurts. This is really crappy. It's emotionally painful. It's hard on the kids, probably hardest on the kids, despite what so many parents think about. And we'll talk about this in the mental health portion, but so many parents go, oh, they're better off with me or whatever. And they bring up they're so stupid. They're so dumb. You have no idea how bad that hurts your children. So when it comes down to that, it's determined literally by who is best to take care of the kid. So much gets brought up about drug use and violence and all this sort of stuff, and men are attacked in this way. Even though that might be the attack process, your ex wouldn't need to do that to establish primary parenting if that were the case. Oftentimes, to establish her as the primary parent, it just needs to be that she's best to take care of the kids. And there's all this slandering that comes involved, and it's stressful. But that most of the time will not mean your kids are going to be taken away. If that is the case, then you need to hire a good lawyer right away. Do not ever skimp on an attorney. Make sure you get a good one. But if you can't get the establishment of primary parent, okay. So what are your options? You get expanded standard or standard, and that's in Travis County. Okay. So expanded standard is every other weekend, first, third, and fifth weekend. And it's Thursday through Sunday, 6 p.m. Thursday, 6 p.m. Sunday. And then you get your holidays carried over on Mondays. It works out to something like 60-40 on your on time. It's pretty cool. But because you're not the primary, you have to pay child support. If you do 50-50 parenting, meaning you see each other 3 days, and then the fourth day gets alternated, or however you decide to do it, 50-50, there still could be a primary parent that receives child support. So that's crazy. You both see the same amount, but one still receives child support. So child support, usually these things are aligned really well, but sometimes they get kind of crazy, right? Like for instance, if a primary parent is established, but then that person gets in trouble and then the courts award, custody to the other parent, child support may still be stuck for the parent that, it gets all crazy. It can get nuts, but we just need to understand this, that the courts are going to see parenting in this way and you're going to have to take it. That's part of the consequence of getting divorced, right? Is that the courts are going to see it this way. Child support is based on a percentage of your income. If you're a commissions-based income, it will be based on whatever the average is of that. And that can get screwed up too. That could get all messed up. Again, why would you, it was told to me by an attorney a while ago, like, if you do this wrong, it's going to mean, one, problems for your kids, but two, that could add up to $60,000, $80,000, dollars extra in child support just over the a couple of years, or alimony if you do this wrong. Why do it wrong? Now, here's the big caveat to this. All this sucks. All of this whole slide sucks. How the courts see parenting. It sucks. It's an attempt to chill stuff out. But here's also one thing that the court knows is the court realizes that if you guys don't rock the boat, if you stop, if you make it so you don't piss each other off, if all of those things happen, then guess what? You'll probably get to see the kids a lot more. Child support will probably still be the same. So you want to get it set at the right amount. You don't want to get screwed in that. And again, it's just based off your income, but a lot of times that could get screwed up or different particular things could go wrong in the court, which is, again, get a good lawyer. So you are going to start seeing your kids a lot. My older kids who got taken away from me, and actually how that story goes, I'll get to it here in a second, is not an issue anymore. Got absolved of all of it by my ex who had made the claims. I'm really grateful that she did that. I'm really upset that she did it in the first place, but really grateful that that happened. But man, like, I see those kids all the time. It works out often to every day of the week that I see them. It's pretty amazing. Now, in the court order, I'm standard visitation with them. I should only see them on the first, third, and fifth weekend, but now we just go how it goes. That happens. Now, it took us 7 years to get there because of all of our problems and whatnot. That could have been definitely sped up if we didn't keep fighting with each other. It's very important. Very, very important. Guys, when you go into getting an attorney, you need to make a plan. At the beginning of all of your consultations, before you set foot in an attorney's office, what you should be doing now and this week is going through those questions, right? Doing your, which we're going to get to, the dirty laundry list and your story. So when you set foot into your consultation, you have those things. You understand the law as much as you can in the state and county that you're in, and you're able to make a plan. So in divorce, there's no winning. Everybody loses. Everybody loses. Okay. You figure out a plan of what you want. You be thorough with that plan. You then talk to other men who have experience in the family law system and what their stories are to see if it's realistic. So much of it is not realistic, especially with women. It's like, they're never going to get to it. It's just women and men do crazy things in divorce and custody. And with women, it's almost always around property and kids and money. It's just insane, which was actually part of our strategy that helped me win, if you want to call it that. Then you want to talk to an attorney about this to see if it's possible. And then you want to make a plan on how to get there. That to me is the only win if that happens. That to me is it. If you walk into a legal battle without a lawyer or with a lawyer and you do not have a plan or a strategy, you are guaranteed to be disappointed and you are damn near guaranteed to get screwed. All you have to do is make a plan. That's what you do. So much of this whole presentation is about what you need to do. You can do it right now without a lawyer. I get it. Man, the court systems are fucked. Yeah, I get it. Men get screwed. Do this. Shut up and do this. It's so vitally important. All right. So, how did I win my case? How I won my case, if you want to call it that. So once again, there's no winning in divorce and custody, but I got my exact plan and all sorts of curveballs came up in the way. And my attorney helped navigate it with myself and my men's group on how to make it work. And it worked. I mean, geez, it took longer than I thought, but man, it worked. So let me just tell you like what my wins are. I don't pay any alimony. All right. I get paid fair child support. I could have gotten my ex charged with child abuse. I could have put a protective order on her. And because of this, I could have been awarded temporary full custody of my 2 kids with her. And I could have then fought for full custody and won it. If I would have decided to fight for full custody, meaning that she would only get the kids on the weekends and probably get a protective order. So for a couple weeks, or if it went to a couple years, protective orders are very hard to reverse, then she wouldn't have gotten to see the kids for a long time. It would have been much easier for me to win a full custody battle with that. So if I decided I wanted to go for full custody, I would have gone for that protective order. I could have charged her with multiple other criminal charges. So not just misdemeanors, but very high level criminal charges. So that sounds really cool. It's like, holy shit. And then what even sounds more cool is that, remember, in 2012, I have a charge, not a conviction, but a charge for injury to a child, for abusing one of my kids, which then later was absolved because of this case. My ex actually testified for me in this case, or was set to testify for me, that this was a miscommunication and so on and whatever. And her husband's an attorney, so she didn't want to incriminate herself in it, but basically said this was not true, right? Or this was an overreaction by all parties in the courts. So you can determine whatever that means. And that's really terrible. It caused a lot of harm. So that's a pretty big win. How did I not pay alimony? How did I not get, taken advantage in child support, which is this rigged system? How do I have an injury to a child case and these things were just thrown out? So some interesting things that you need to understand about court cases is your criminal past can influence something, but it does not directly affect your current case. So if I stole money from you and I go to court, if I have a track record of stealing, that's really bad, but does that affect my case? And if you can determine that, that's key. Okay, so this is very, very important. So if you have been drunk in front of your family, then all that stuff's going to get brought up and it's going to be relevant. But if she's saying that you got drunk and is trying to search for that and she can't prove it, that's huge, right? If you do something publicly, like for instance, like I have men's stuff. I talk about dating. I talk about different sexual stuff. Society does not look at that in a good way. But I feel like, man, this is my career. It's part of the career and so on. But in a court case, I'm not sitting there going like, I'm going to do that more. I want to actually chill those things out if it could affect my case, because it could affect my kids. I didn't think it would when we were happily together or so on. But then if she wanted to say that was a bad thing, she would have to prove, one, that it was affecting my role as a parent, and that she did everything she could to stop me from doing it. But in my case, I could say, okay, look, she was aware before we had kids. When we met, I was doing this. She encouraged me to do it. She helped me make these videos. We already had kids when this happened. Like, this was a part of what was going on. There wasn't manipulation or coercion. There wasn't force or anything like that. So we tie up a lot of things in these divorce and custody cases that really have nothing to do with divorce and custody. And that's where the gossip gets all screwed up. And this is where men's rights groups get all screwed up. They make it about something which is not your particular case. and it gaslights the whole situation. So it's totally screwed up. Now, in this, I remember going down a checklist of my dirty laundry and her dirty laundry. And my attorney was like, okay, this could be bad. Okay, well, let's just admit to this because it's not that bad or whatever. This doesn't matter. No judge is going to care about it. So that was a lot of my stuff. With her dirty laundry, he's like, oh man, this is bad. This is a separate criminal charge. This is really bad. This is, this could go into really, anyway, whatever. So she had a decent amount of those things. But what he said was, he's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter about child custody. This would deal with things like sexual assault or things like, conspiracy and so on, but it doesn't have to do with child custody or divorce or property. And so it's great information, but it's not there. So another interesting thing that happened in this process was, one, I was clean. So I didn't have much wrong with me. It was so funny because he's like, Steve, I get that you say you're sober. I get that you say you're in recovery. Come on. You haven't smoked a little bit of pot. I'm like, no, man, I'll take a year test. I'll do whatever. He's like, you sure? Because if you haven't, we could press really hard with that. If you're like officially clean in every way that could be checked, we can really, really check for that. So turns out I was, and we pushed really hard for that. Okay. In that, he realized some consistencies from my ex. And also she picked a lawyer that was not a family law attorney. She lied to her attorney massively. So she did some things that do not affect child custody whatsoever. And when we asked about them, so again, we didn't have to, this probably wouldn't make sense in court, right? About some of the things. But when we asked about them, her response back to her attorney was basically a lie. We knew we could prove that was a lie. And he was like, well, she's doing this line, maybe there's some behavioral things, or, people get in divorces, they do some crazy psychological stuff. We can trap her in those ways. And he did. And so what happened was when we did our depositions, he pushed in that direction. She immediately responded, and he took on a role of getting her to talk about all those things that had nothing to do with child custody, nothing to do, but would have to do with big time state jail felonies, criminal case, like things which she just went right in and defended. And also one of the big things in that is that she was like, we were never married. I don't want anything from him. Whatever. Okay. Consigned to that. Cool. That's how I have no alimony. So we were married in terms of common law, and the state of Texas common law is really easy to establish. She threw all that away. So she threw all that away in our deposition. Later on, she complained about it, and it's like, man, you swore under oath that this was not, what you want. Like, it was just so crazy. So you could say you were lying under oath because we've proved that you've lied about these like 20 plus other things that have really big consequences. You defended criminal behavior. You defended criminal behavior to your own kids, all these different things. So it really wound her in an interesting spot. And that's how I got my way. The number one factor in that was that I lived a good life for the time that I was with her and didn't do things that were bad. Okay. So if you want to call that winning, you want to call that winning. Now you might ask, well, why didn't you get full custody? This is one of the things of being the general instead of the soldier. I fundamentally believe, I raised those kids from day one to, for one of them 5, and then the other one till 3 or just about 4. I was fine with doing that for the rest of my life. But we both raised those kids. If they're going to have one parent as the primary, I felt it should still be her. Even though it was classified, no questions asked, abuse that was done to my kids by her, admittedly, I felt that was, and discussed this at length with my groups, with my attorneys, with therapists, I work in a rehab with tons of people who've had these different things because it's hard to make a decision on your own. What would be better, taking the kids away from her permanently or having us both raise the kids? And it was clear cut from everybody who worked in mental health, everybody who worked in addiction, everybody who worked in trauma, that it was better to be around both parents. Now, also having the experience myself and my older kids being like, dude, that was the worst thing that could have ever happened to us, taking us away from you. And then, just going through that whole thing by ourselves and having to figure it out. That was the worst. So we all sit here and think like, oh man, if you could get full custody, why not do it? If you could take out your revenge on her, you do it. But that's what stupid, immature people do. And that's perhaps what soldiers do. Man, I made it really clear as I could without causing too much damage to her exactly what was happening here. And that's the best I could do. Now she could go off and think whatever she wants. She's great. She does a lot of good things. People are crazy in divorce and custody. People do really stupid stuff, immature stuff. She had zero experience in this. She didn't know what was going to happen to her. I have a lot of empathy for that. She does great stuff. We communicate as best we can now. But man, one of the things that was also told to me by multiple attorneys and consulting for this is if you can do this, like I encourage you to do this road, because it will ensure like she's already making false abuse claims and trying to do that maliciously, and it's really obvious, which that by itself is not something that can win custody. That's just a bad character thing. That's great. And that could be a separate case that I could sue her for, but making false claims, criminal claims against me, that's a character thing. It doesn't mean that I'm a bad parent or she's a bad parent. It means that we made a bad choice. What is more important about determining good or bad parenthood is who takes care of the kids best. Okay. Is that abuse or no? Now, that was not one of the things that turned into the abuse that she defended that was justified by her because of a cause. So those are the things which really made my case work. I had a clean record. There's guys who come to me and they've been violent. There's guys who come to me who've been drunk around their kids or intoxicated around their kids. That's a different story. You have to follow a different plan. And I would tell you at that point, you have to hire an attorney. That was not my situation. There's a situation where their exes may not have done something wrong. Their exes may not have been so immature and unprepared as mine to be stupid under oath or whatever, or be unprepared under oath. That is huge, right? So me coming into this before any of this started, I was like, I want custody of my kids. I want fair child support. I want to chill her out. That's all I want. That's what I told my attorney. After our depositions, my attorney's like, dude, we could go to the court right now. I could get you full custody. This is amazing. This is unreal. This is unreal. Like you could do it. And I was like, no, I don't want that. I've already thought this through. I've already talked it over with my men's group. I've already done this. And this ties into this last slide in this presentation. This is about being a great man. This is about being a general. This is about being somebody who leads your family over time. Fatherhood is a commitment for life. You need to understand that. If you take the road of blame, of low-level gossip, of resentment, all of those things are never justified. They're necessary in every man to have anger, to have pissed offness, to have revenge, to have vengeance. But our society of men right now, our culture of men, the men who are the loudest voices say those are good things. And man, they are necessary. They are good things in certain environments and in certain areas, but they are not good things to lead a family. At times, you will need to flex. At times, you will need to do whatever. You will need to do force. We had to use force in my case at the end of it. We had to do that. But if you think that is what masculinity is, you are thinking of an immature male and a one-dimensional male. I have fought in my life. I've had pain in my life. I've had so many things in my life where I've had to put it on the line and go for it. And they're very, very great. But the most important thing for every single one of those things was to gain the wisdom of when to do that and when not to do it. Because if we are going to tear ourselves down and the most important things down, that is how we do it. The most important things like your family. I get it. You want to get involved in a cause. You want to turn it into something where you can blame the whole universe or say that you're justified in your anger. You are justified in your anger, but you are chosen, whatever it is, if you believe in religion or spirituality or whatever, you were chosen to take this path, or you were given this path of pain. I'm not a religious person, so the whole choosing thing, a little bit different, but you are given this path of pain and you are given this thing to walk through. You are given the pain that you feel, the revenge that you feel, and you need to learn to take the footsteps of a good man. And that means going through it, that means feeling it, but then bringing it to the peace. And if we try and resist it, we try and hold on to it, we try and repress it, it will always stay. And this is one of those choices that you need to make. Am I on the path of being a man in his excellence, or am I being on the path of a man who wants to stay in my depression and blame just so I could feel good for the moment at the expense of my kids, at the expense of my well-being, at the expense of all of my future relationships, friends, family, lovers, and so on. That is what we are doing. And that's how important this is. So I'm breaking down all of this stuff. I'm breaking down the legal game. I'm breaking down the psychological aspects of what we're going to do in the next couple of days. I'm breaking down how your life is afterwards. I'm breaking down how you rebuild yourself. I'm breaking down how important this is because it is vital. This is why it is the rite of passage of masculinity. Yeah, I get it. Our culture, wasn't a primitive culture that chopped off our foreskins at 14 and we don't feel like a man because of it. Man, really? That's your excuse? That's your excuse for having your self-will run riot? This is your time to face the things you've never faced. This is the time where you think everything is going to end. And I can guarantee you and prove to you, because I have 100 guys on my boards right now who've been through this, and there's more, there's thousands who have been through this and have ended up better because of it. And almost every single one of those guys will say the same thing here, is that, man, my life is better now. My life is infinitely better. Man, I can check, whatever is better, whether that's my career, whether that's my relationships, whether that's my perspective on life, whether that's my ability to be with myself, whether that's healing my past traumas. But you know what? If I had to go back and decide, am I going to fix these things that could prevent me from being divorced, I would do it. And the reason why is because every single one of those men knows the value of masculinity and commitment. All right, that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with our workshop. And now I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to open it up for questions. Now, that being said, I'm going to stop the recording on the YouTube broadcast, but on the Facebook broadcast, your questions are still being recorded. If you have any questions, type them in the comments and I will answer them right now.